Hi friends, this is Anil here. Welcome to my YouTube channel Shreyas Data Insights. So in today's session we'll just quickly recap the core components of generation 1, followed by we discuss the limitations and we'll understand how these limitations addressed in next generation Hadoop. So we can call the next generation Hadoop as YARN, yet another resource negotiator. Okay, so we'll see one by one. So coming to this, we understood HDFS and MapReduce are the important components, because as Hadoop follows master and slave architecture, here coming to this HDFS, the storage area, name node is acting as a master and which is associated with n number of data nodes. So there is no restriction on the data nodes. You can have maximum based on your requirement. And here we are having a file system which is distributed to multiple blocks so that you can store your data. And even we discussed about the replication also. Okay, and this data nodes maintains the actual data, and coming to this name node, this maintains the metadata. Okay, now coming to this MapReduce engine, so resource management and processing both handled by this particular MapReduce engine. So here also we are having master daemons or master services and slave daemons are the worker nodes. So you're coming to this job tracker is a master daemon which is associated with n number of task triggers. So what's the thumb rule here? Based on number of data nodes you can have those many task triggers. Okay, so whenever you're giving any particular task, the task will be completed in purely in a parallel manner. In last session I just explained with an example also, right, how the things can happen, right? So this is about core components of generation 1, and here you cannot have multiple name nodes, so it's a single point of failure. Suppose this name node is down, that's it, your complete Hadoop system is down. Okay, we don't have any hot standby for this name node. So we are having a secondary name node, but that is not a hard standby. Okay, it's just acting as a checkpoint node, that's it. Periodically it's taking the last 1 hour's metadata and it's updating with the logs and once again giving back the metadata to name node and keeping that metadata separately on the disk space also. So this is the activity which is done by your secondary name node, but that is not the hard standby. Okay, so it's just doing the housekeeping jobs. So what is the analogy that you can understand the role of secondary name node? For example, on the absence of your boss, his personal assistant cannot become boss to the organization, isn't it? Even though he's having complete details about the company and whom to meet, when to meet, what to discuss, so he's having all the details, right? The personal assistant, PA of your boss, is having all the details, but on the absence of your boss, he cannot become the boss to your organization. Got it? So please understand the role of secondary name node in generation 1. So it's just doing the housekeeping jobs, that's it. It cannot provide any hot standby for this particular name node. Got it? Now at the same time, before going with the limitations and all, please understand replication factor is 3 and it's a default configuration parameter. So if you are not configuring anything, so 3 remains. Otherwise we can make 1, 2 or 10 also based on our requirement, but you cannot make it 0 because at least we need 1 replicant. And the default block size is 64 MB. If and all you are not configuring, by default you will be getting the 64 MB blocks. At the same time, it doesn't mean that simply Hadoop is creating 64 MB blocks for a 1 KB file or a 2 KB file. Okay, it's not like that. By default, it's giving an opportunity to create a 64 MB. It doesn't mean that, for a small chunks of files also it's creating 64 MB blocks and it's wasting the memory. So by default, it can create 64 MB. But coming to the creation of the block, it purely depends on your file size. Okay, so these are the important points you need to understand here. Now coming to the limitations here, So it's good. The generation 1 is good for batch data processing. And whenever you are looking for real-time processing, this architecture is not able to support. Of course, you cannot do any real-time. I can say here near real-time only. The way the data is generated, it needs some time, right? At least 5 seconds or 5 milliseconds. It needs some time. Then only you can start processing. So frankly speaking, there is no such environment which can do real-time processing. We can call that just as a near real-time. So it needs some time, right? Suppose you are having the data is generated in a streaming fashion. So the stream of data has to come to your end. You need to store somewhere, and you need to start analysis. So maybe for every 5 seconds you are receiving the data, and you have to store that, and you have to start the processing activity. So got it? So that's the reason we can call it's just a near real-time processing. But anyway, limit the discussion. This generation 1 architecture supports batch data processing. So what do you mean by that batch data processing? For example, you're having some data like weather data or an employee data or any IoT sensor data, okay, whatever it may be. So the data is coming to you, so you're storing that in HDFS. Once the data is stored, then you are starting processing. Okay, so you are moving the data from one end to another end, nothing but from your local file system to Hadoop distributed file system. Then you are starting processing the data. Okay, right. So this is called batch data processing. So you are not doing any real-time processing here. So you are getting some time. Okay, so historical data you're taking and you're processing for a particular problem statement, right? At the same time, we understood just now single component or something like a single point of failure. So job tracker and name node are just a single point of failure. They are not having any, there is no such kind of high availability. At the same time, the job tracker has to perform a lot of activities like resource management, job scheduling, job monitoring. Whenever a job got failed, so rescheduling the job. So these all activities has to performed by a single component called job tracker. Okay, so what do you mean by the resource management and all? See, whenever you want to run a particular process, it needs some memory, RAM, CPU, network, all these, right? So this is nothing but the resources. So whenever a problem statement has to take that has to be received by job tracker, and it has to clear that. It has to solve that. It has to process the particular problem statement. The job tracker need resources as well as the business logic also. Business logic will be supplied to the task takers so that they can start the mapper process and the reducer process. And to run all this mapper process and reducer process, certainly all the process needs memory, RAM, CPU and network, of course, nothing but resources. So here the job tracker is the only guy who has to maintain all these. So processing and resource management, everything has to be taken care by the job tracker only. At the same time, the Hadoop generation 1 does not support multi-tenancy. So multiple processing frameworks are not entertained in generation 1. Okay, got it? So if you are having data on HDFS, that's it. And if you want to process, MapReduce is the only available framework. You cannot come with your own framework to process the data. Okay, that feature is known as multi-tenancy. Okay, we'll understand in our coming slides what do you mean by the multi-tenancy. At the same time, you cannot have multiple name nodes or multiple namespaces for a cluster, right? So nothing but high availability or federation. So you cannot federate the name nodes, nothing but you cannot have multiple independent name nodes, or you cannot have a high availability scenario, nothing but two name nodes are working in parallel. One is in active state and one is in the passive state. Okay, this situation is known as high availability. So in my coming slides, I'll be explaining what you mean by high availability and the federation here. And one more important thing here is generation 1 follows static MapReduce slots. So what do you mean by static MapReduce slots? So in my previous example, I explained very clearly what we observed there. unless otherwise we are not completing the mapper process, reducer process will never starts, right? But what happens in generation 1? So the mapper process and the reducer process, all of them will get the resources, a kind of pre-allocation of resources. Okay, got it? This is called static way of resource allocation. So actually there is no work, right, to the reducer, unless otherwise if the mappers are not completing their job. So reducer is simply sitting idle. What it will do with the resources? But the problem here with generation 1 is it follows the static map reduce slots. Got it? So simply the reducers also get the resources, and the resources will be wasted, or they're sitting idle and not performing any activity. So this is a one more major drawback. Okay, static map and reduce slots. Now what you mean by this YARN? Yet another resource negotiator, or some people will call this as a map reduce version 2, MRV2 framework. So basically this is a cluster management technology. So how to maintain your cluster, how we can utilize the resources more effectively. Okay, instead of doing the static allocation of the resources, how we can allocate the resources dynamically. So whenever a particular process, for example mapper needs some resources or the reducer needs some resources, only a particular process will get the resources, a kind of dynamism. Okay, and we'll discuss some other features also. First of all, this YARN supports multi-tenancy, something like multiple access engines now are going to support it. So with the help of those multiple access engines, you can perform batch data processing, interactive data, or near real-time processing. So multiple ways or multiple processing engines supported in generation 2 here. Look at this slide, guys. So here I'm having HDFS, nothing but where I'm storing my data, and on top of that I'm having YARN. Okay, nothing but this, yet another resource negotiator. I'm having this data operating system on top of my HDFS. So what's the purpose of this? Now I can go with a multiple applications and multiple processing engines. So MapReduce now becomes only one of the processing engine. Earlier in generation 1, right, MapReduce is the only processing engine. Now it becomes one of the processing engine. Why I am saying one of the processing engine? Why? Because now you can process your data using MapReduce or Tej or Slider or Spark. So what do you mean by that really? So now this HDFS purely becomes a storage area, right? Now once the data is stored in HDFS, now you can process this particular data using multiple processing engines based on your requirement. So now you are not limited to batch data processing. Now you can go with the batch data or interactive or real-time data access by using multiple engines like Tej, Slider and Spark, of course the MapReduce. If you are not configuring anything by default, MapReduce engine will works as it is on top of this particular ad. Otherwise you can go with the Tej or you can go with a Spark. So any other engines can be, you can use, and you can process your data based on your requirement, what kind of data that you're going to process here. Okay, for example, nowadays this Peak and Hive will be working on top of Tej. So in generation 1 or even in generation 2 also, to work this Peak and Hive you can use this MapReduce engine. But instead of that, if you are using Tej, this Peak and Hive can work very efficiently and very fastly. Got it? So this feature is known as multi-tenancy of YARN here. And what next? Cluster utilization. So now it utilizes the resources in a dynamic fashion. Okay, so just now we discussed about that, right? In generation 1 we are having a static MapReduce rules. So even though reducer is not doing anything with the resources unless otherwise the mapper process getting completed, but even then the reducer is also getting the resources. But here such things are not possible, nothing but it's not wasting memory like that. So whenever a particular mapper process or a reducer process really needs to process the data, then only they will get the resources. That's it. And coming to the scalability, now you can extend your cluster by adding more number of nodes. So now you'll be able to handle petabytes or more than that data. Coming to the compatibility, the applications what you implemented in generation 1 can run on generation 2 also without changing anything. Okay, for example, you implemented some jar file. In last session we have seen, right, we are processing some maximum and minimum temperature, and you implemented that logic in generation 1, for example, and you just created a jar file. Now same thing can work on top of generation 2 also without changing anything, having a compatibility with that. Okay, right. So what are the advantages of this EARN? So it's providing good scalability, would have a high availability. Why I'm saying high availability here? So there is no problem because we are now running with a multiple name nodes. In earlier, if our name node is down, that's it, our entire Hadoop system is down, so all the running applications are going to be aborted. But now we don't have such problem. So this phenomena is known as high availability. At the same time, this supports multi-tenancy that already we discussed, multiple namespaces, nothing but federation concept. I'll explain what you mean by that federation in my coming slides. So by which it really improvises the cluster utilization, and of course supports the horizontal scalability also. So nothing but you can add more machines to existing cluster, so that you can improvise a pool of resources as well here. So these are the advantages. Now coming to the core components, the way Hadoop generation 1 is having some core components, okay, the generation 2, nothing but EARN is also having some core components. If you observe, we don't have any change in terms of storage. As usual, we are having a name node which maintains the metadata, and we are having a data nodes which really maintains the actual data. There is no problem in terms of SDFS. But coming to this EARN, there's the newly added components here. So here the master is resource manager, and we do have the slave here, node manager. So worker node here is node manager, and the master is resource manager. So what about the job tracker and task tracker? Why I have not shown? So it's really simple thing, guys. Don't think that there is no job tracker and no task tracker in generation 2. It's not like that. Now, as this particular EARN supports multi-tenancy, you may use the MapReduce as your processing engine, or a Tej, or Slider, or Spark. So that's the reason I have not shown here. Okay, so it purely depends what kind of framework that you're going to use or implement on top of generation 2. So the classic thing is MapReduce only. Once again, the job tracker and task tracker will work on with the association of these resource managers and node managers in a similar fashion. Okay, this resource manager and node managers will control complete resources, or the cluster management tools here really. Okay, so coming to this is the master, and node managers are the slave nodes, or we can call the worker nodes. Got it? Now we just understand the control elements here. So what is the fundamental idea of this EARN? So just let's split in the functionality of resource management and job scheduling monitoring into separate demands here. So it's just separating the resource management and scheduling, how to schedule the jobs and how to allocate the resources to them is just separating. So how it's separating? So for that, it's using some components, like it's using a global resource manager, okay, per application master. So what do you mean by this per application master? So whenever you're starting a particular application, like you're just doing some word count process, or you would like to process some maximum and minimum temperature, you're having certain data and you would like to process that. Okay, so whenever you're processing certain data and you have started processing an application, one application master will be created dedicatedly for that. So what do you mean by that really? So if you are running 100 process, it means that 100 app masters or applications masters are running, and when they will terminate, the moment the application got completed. Suppose you just started some maximum and minimum temperature problem, immediately the application master will be generated, right? So once you have completed your task, like you just completed all the mapper process, reducer process and everything, so you got the result also, then application master will be terminated. That's it. At the same time, we're having per node slave node managers. So resource manager is the master and node manager is the slave node or the worker node. And of course, per application we are having a container is also running on a node manager. So if you see here on the node manager, we are having two important components. One is a container and one is the app master, nothing but the application master. So for each application, an app master will be created, and we are having a container also, because this application has to run, right? So where the applications will run? The applications will run on top of the containers. So container is nothing but pool of resources. So what do you mean by this container? Container is nothing but pool of resources, a combination of CPU, RAM, disk space and network, of course. So this is the combination of so pool of resources now you will be calling as a container and app master. So these two are the important components of the node manager. So app master, of course, I already explained, right? Per application. So if you're running 100 applications, 100 app masters will be running on top of the containers by using some pool of resources. Now, so already we discussed this resource manager. Now we understand a bit more here. So resource manager, now once again the master having two important components. One is the scheduler and one is the applications manager. What you mean by the scheduler? Scheduler is just a pluggable policy. So how you want to plan the things here, how you want to run the process. Like for example, we understood, right, in our graduation days we just studied about first in first out or last in first out priority. So we are having some certain algorithms, right, in a similar fashion. So this scheduler is also just a policy, how you want to take the particular problem statement, how you are going to allocate the resources, how you would like to maintain the queues. So this is nothing but the scheduler. So basically we are having two default pluggable policies. One is a capacity scheduler and other is the fair scheduler. So these policies or these schedulers are developed, one from Facebook and one from the Yahoo here. Okay, so practically you can see which scheduler is given for you as a default one. Okay, now the scheduler is purely a pluggable policy, right? And it is responsible for partitioning and allocating the cluster resources, because multiple processes are running, so all of them need certain resources, right? So these resources will be given with the help of the scheduler only. And of course, problem with the scheduler is it is not at all doing any monitoring or tracking of the application. So it's just giving other resources, that's it. Suppose application may complete or may not complete, or a particular failed task has to be restarted, so these things will not be undertaken by the scheduler. So then who will take the responsibility? Nothing but the applications manager. So this guy is the responsible person, who is accepting the job submissions and taking the first container to execute the first application, right, and starting a particular app master. All these activities, suppose a particular process got failed, and restarting that application, once again allocating some resources, nothing but allocating some container. So all these activities will be taken care by the applications manager. And guys, please don't get confused with this applications manager and application master. So this application must runs at the node manager level, at nothing but at slave level, whereas this applications manager is running at resource manager level. Okay, I'm repeating once again. Applications manager runs at resource manager level, and application master runs at node manager, nothing but slave level. So this guy is taking the responsibility for the job submissions, restarting the failure job, right, and negotiating the first container. All this will be taken care by the applications manager. And one more important feature of this EARN is it maintains security with the help of Kerberos. In generation 1 we don't have such facility. Okay, we don't have any Kerberos facility, so we are just having some POSIX kind of permissions and accessibility. So security is a big challenge in generation 1 architecture. Whereas coming to this EARN, security is now maintained by Kerberos here. And what about the node manager and application master? We'll understand once again. So node manager already we understood, right? It's just a slave one. So is the per machine framework agent who is responsible for containers, monitoring their usage, how the resources will be used, and reporting the same to the resource manager. Okay, so certain resources are given, how they are using, how much CPU is used, how much memory is used, how many disk space is used, how much network is used by a particular process. So this is all information now given back to its master, nothing but the resource manager. So this is the job of your node manager. Got it? Suppose you're running a process, you're running some maximum and minimum temperature, that is your problem statement. So this process needs certainly certain CPU, memory, disk and network, right? Nothing but pool of resources. So how this particular process is using, what is the time it's taken, okay, how it's using the CPU, how whether it's using maximum CPU or minimum CPU, or it need more of that. Okay, so all these things will be taken care by the node manager. At the same time, I already explained of the application master. So what is application master here really? It's a framework specific library and is tasked with negotiating resources from the resource manager and working with the node managers, nothing but to execute and monitor tasks. So whenever you are starting a process, one application master will be created. What is the purpose of application master? It's just recording the logs, when the particular process started, how much resources that is really used, how many blocks of data that is processed, how much time it took to complete the process. So all this information for a particular process is going to be available with this application master. Got it? So these are the core components. Just I would like to quickly recap once again. So in generation 2 or Hadoop 2x, storage remains same here, there is no problem. Name node and data node, this remains same here. And coming to the processing, you can go with MapReduce, or you can go with Tej, or you can go with a Slider or a Spark. It purely depends which framework that you would like to which processing framework that you would like to really use. And whereas the resource management or the cluster management purely taken care by the EARN. So this guy is also having or follows master and slave architecture. So the master is resource manager. Already we discussed the important components of resource manager and the important components of node manager also. Okay, please do understand, guys. Now coming to the important feature here, name node high availability. So this feature is only available in generation 2 or in the EARN architecture. So what do you mean by this really? Now first of all we'll understand the components, then we'll understand the concept also. So here if you observe, I'm having secondary name node, but of course I said optional, this was not required if you are going with a high availability. And here if you observe, I'm having two components, one is the active name node and one is the standby name node. So two name nodes are available now. And if you look at here, I'm having a shared FS image and edit logs, nothing but now the metadata is shared between these two guys. Got it? So this scenario is known as high availability of name node. So I'm running two name nodes. So one is an active name node and one is a standby name node. Okay, so who will decide which should become active or which should act as active and which should act as a standby? So Zookeeper is a service, or Zookeeper is the coordinator service which elects the master, because there should be a raising condition, right? So this guy wants to become the master and this guy also becomes the master at a time. So one coordination service should be there to control the election of masters. So who will take that? The zookeeper is the deciding factor here. So this is the coordinator here. So it does a coordinator job to control these two guys. Nothing but election of masters. It makes sure that, for example, this guy becomes the master, or nothing but this guy becomes the active name node. Okay, it makes sure that the other one is becoming the standby. At any given time, you cannot have two active name nodes. If this guy is active, this guy has to be standby. If this becomes the active, this has to become standby. That's it. How about data nodes here? These guys now giving the heartbeat not only to this but also to this also. Okay, so what is the advantage here? So both the name nodes now getting the heartbeat from all the data nodes, and the metadata is also shared between these two guys, and this well coordinated by the zookeeper. So what is the advantage here? So something went wrong in our Hadoop cluster. This guy suddenly went off, or it got crashed. The process will never halted. The running process never halted or never aborted, because immediately this guy takes the responsibility. Now this becomes the active name node, and it makes sure that all the running process will run without any problem, because this guy is also having the metadata. This is not the offline metadata, right? This is the real-time metadata. So what exactly available here? This is available to here also, and it's having the complete data node details also. How many data nodes are there, and what are the block status? Okay, what is the replications factor, and what is the heartbeat, what is the block report? So complete information now is available with this guy as well as this guy also. So the moment this guy fails, immediately zookeeper alerts the standby name node. Standby name node, this is the time for you. So you have to turn as an active name node, and you have to take all the responsibility of the data nodes and everything. So this guy immediately becomes the active name node. Okay, so that we can troubleshoot this guy later, and we can make the active name node as a standby name node. We can later do that, but our running process will never aborted or halted. So that's the beauty of high availability of name node. Got it? So we are running multiple name nodes. So these two guys will share the metadata, and these two guys will get the heartbeat also from the data nodes, right? And who will control this complete process? So this will be controlled by the zookeeper. This is what exactly happens. And why I kept secondary name node as an optional here? So in generation 2 also we can run with the one name node only. So I'm not running with a, for example, I have not configured any active name node and standby name node. Still here also in the generation 2 I be running with the active name node. So now I can make one more node as a secondary name node. So this guy periodically updates my metadata and saves my metadata in disk location as it is, how it behaves like in generation 1, a kind of a checkpoint node. So if you're running with these two things and the metadata is shared and data nodes are giving heartbeat, so everything is available to this guy as well as this guy. This is the hard standby here. Okay, this is the hard standby. In such a situation, this becomes purely optional here. Fine. Now what next? So next we'll talk about the federation concept. So what we are federating, what do you mean by federating? First of all, federation is nothing but independent. That's it. They're not depending anyone. That means, right? That is the meaning of federation here. So who is federated here really? Nothing but the namespaces. The namespaces which contained by the name nodes becomes the federation here. If you look at this here, we are having a common data storage. So data node 1, 2, 3, 4, like the way if you are having n data nodes, all this treated as a common data storage. To whom? So now we are running with the multiple namespaces which are available with multiple name nodes. So my name node 1 is having namespace 1, my name node 2 is having namespace 2, my name node 3, like the way I'm having namespace n. Got it? So now for this name node and namespace, okay, all these data nodes becomes a common storage. For this is a common storage. For this is the common storage. So what's a block pool here? Block pool is nothing but set of blocks which belongs to a single namespace. So these blocks which belongs to this guy, this belongs to this guy, and this belongs to this guy. This is purely related with this only. This is not the shared one. Only this is the shared one here. And what do you mean by namespace? Here I said ns1, nsk, nsn. All these are nothing but the namespaces. So these guys contains the directories, files, and blocks. Okay. So it just have the transaction records also. Nothing but transactions. When a particular file is created, deleted, or modified, what are the available files and directories. So these details will be available with the namespaces. Got it? So we'll be calling the namespace and the block pool. This block pool and this namespace, collectively known as a namespace volume. So what is the advantage of this? First of all, see here, look at this. I'm having three name nodes which are having three namespaces here. In first name node I am having development, and second one I'm having the production, and I'm having a testing environment in my name node 3. So these namespaces which is contained with all the name nodes, are federated here. So what is the advantage here? So something went wrong with this testing, or something went wrong with this development, which will not affect any production. See here, I'm having common data storage, and this name node 1, name node 2, name node 3 are working independently. They are not depending on each other. Okay, so something went wrong with this namespace, or something went wrong with this namespace, or this namespace only affects to this particular thing, and which is not at all reflecting to other one. So something went wrong and my testing environment got corrupted or crashed, which is not at all influencing my development and production environments. So that's the beauty of federation. Okay, that's all guys. So hope you understood this second generation of Hadoop architecture, and even you understood the limitations of generation 1. Okay, in my next session I'll be explaining the Hadoop commands, how to interact with the Hadoop cluster, right? And what do you mean by storing in Hadoop, what do you mean by processing in Hadoop. Okay, so all these things we'll understand. So in my next session I'll be explaining basic Unix commands which needed for a daily need of this particular Hadoop developer. At the same time I'll be explaining some Hadoop commands also which is used by developer. At the same time I'll be giving some commands of Hadoop admin also, but that admin commands will not having any access in real time for you people. So as a developer we cannot do any admin activities, but even then, for sake of curiosity, we'll just understand the behavior of the Hadoop cluster. Okay, so in my coming session we'll be explaining everything. So there we talk about only commands only. Okay, right? Hope you are enjoying my these particular sessions which are available through my YouTube channel Shreyas Data Insights. So please like, share and subscribe to get more information from my end. Thank you. Bye for now.